It's becoming increasingly clear from new polling data. Donald Trump is now leading in every crucial swing state, positioning him for what could be a commanding victory over Kamala Harris in next month's presidential election. If these numbers continue to hold, we might witness Trump flipping the electoral map in a way that hasn't been seen since the 1980s. What we're looking at is a potential landslide. To break this all down, today we're going to go deep into the 2024 electoral map, analyzing the most recent polling from each key state and walking through how the election results might unfold on election night. We'll start by looking at the poll closing times across the country, moving east to west, just like the real election results will be reported. As polls close, we'll fill in the states to show what things could look like as election night progresses, giving you a step-by-step preview of how the electoral map will likely shape up in real time as votes are counted. The goal is to help you visualize how each state might go and the kind of momentum shifts we could see as Trump and Harris battle it out for the presidency. First, at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time, polls will close in 6 states with a combined total of 60 electoral votes. One of the most significant states closing at this time is Georgia, which has been a focal point for both parties. In 2020, Georgia shocked many by flipping blue for Joe Biden, marking the first time a Democratic candidate won the state since Bill Clinton back in 1992. But in 2024, the dynamics in Georgia appear to have changed dramatically. According to a Quinnipiac poll, which tends to be more favorable to Democrats, Trump is now ahead by a whopping 5 points. That's a huge swing from 2020, while other polls suggest a smaller lead with Trump up by an average of 1.5 points. The consistency of his lead is telling. Trump has been polling ahead in Georgia for several months, showing that Biden's win in 2020 might have been more of an outlier than a permanent shift in the state's political landscape. Based on this consistent polling advantage, we can confidently mark Georgia as leaning red. Kamala Harris will have a hard time pulling off a repeat performance in Georgia, especially with the state trending back toward Trump. But before we get into the details, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for your support. Another key state in the 7:00 p.m. time slot is Virginia. Now, Virginia is a bit of a mixed bag for the Democrats in 2020. Biden won the state by a comfortable 10 points, but recent polls suggest Harris's support is much weaker. According to the latest Rasmussen Reports poll, Harris is barely leading by 3. Rasmussen is known for being one of the more reliable pollsters, so that 3-point lead is far from reassuring for the Democrats. To put this in perspective, Harris's current margin is less than half of what Biden had in 2020. This tightening race in Virginia signals potential trouble for Democrats. Trump hasn't won Virginia since 2004, but the fact that the race is competitive now is significant. For the time being, we'll mark Virginia's leaning blue, but this state could shift if Harris continues to lose ground. The remaining states with some 7:00 p.m. poll closings are more predictable. Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina are all solid red states, and Trump will easily win them. Vermont, meanwhile, is deep blue and will go to Harris without question. Once these states are filled in, Trump will start the night with an early lead of 44 electoral votes, while Harris will have 60. At 7:30 p.m., polls will close in 3 more states, Ohio, North Carolina, and West Virginia, totaling 38 electoral votes. Of these, the most important battleground is North Carolina. Trump narrowly won North Carolina in both 2016 and 2020, and it looks like he's on track to do so again in 2024. The latest Emerson College poll has Trump leading Harris by 1. Now, while a 1-point lead might not seem like much, Trump's consistency in North Carolina is the key here. Out of the last 14 polls conducted in the state, Harris has only led in 2 of them. This is significantly worse than how Biden was polling in North Carolina at this point in 2020. With Trump consistently ahead, we can mark North Carolina as tilting red, although it's still considered a competitive state. Ohio, meanwhile, is another state where Trump is looking strong. According to the latest polls, Trump is leading by 6. Historically, Ohio has been a key swing state, but in recent years, it's trended more toward Republicans. In both 2016 and 2020, Trump won Ohio by much larger margins than the polls predicted. If history is any guide, Trump could outperform his current polling in Ohio once again. We'll mark Ohio as leaning red, but it's worth noting that Trump's lead could grow as we get closer to Election Day. West Virginia, one of the most reliably Republican states in the country, will also close its polls at 7:30 p.m. Trump is expected to win West Virginia by a wide margin, as it is one of the most conservative states in the U.S. This will be a comfortable victory for Trump, giving him another easy boost in electoral votes. At 8:00 p.m., a massive wave of states will close their polls, 16 states and the District of Columbia accounting for a total of 171 electoral votes. This is the largest batch of poll closings we'll see in one go. And while many of these states are solidly blue or red, a few battlegrounds will stand out. Trump will easily carry the southern states of Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, while Harris will win the deep blue states of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and D.C. Illinois, New Jersey, and Delaware are also expected to go blue, though the margins may not be as wide as they were in 2020. One of the biggest battlegrounds in this group is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has played a pivotal role in the last few elections, often serving as a tipping point for the presidency. In 2024, the latest polling from Emerson College shows Trump and Harris tied, while the Trafalgar Group poll gives Trump a 3-point lead. Trafalgar was one of the few polling organizations that correctly predicted Trump's 2016 victory, so their data carries a lot of weight. Back in 2016, Hillary Clinton led by an average of 7.5 points in Pennsylvania, but Trump still managed to win. With Harris unable to open up a significant lead in Pennsylvania, the state looks increasingly likely to flip back to the GOP in 2024. Based on these trends, we'll mark Pennsylvania's leaning red on our map. New Hampshire is another state to keep an eye on, though it's a smaller battleground. Harris leads by 7 in the latest polls, but New Hampshire polling has historically overestimated Democratic support. While it's still likely that Harris will carry New Hampshire, we'll mark it as leaning blue, given the polling discrepancies in past elections. In Maine, the picture is split. Harris leads by 9 statewide, but Trump is leading by Stephen and Maine's more conservative 2nd congressional district. Maine allocates electoral votes by district, so while Harris will likely win the state overall, Trump is positioned to pick up at least 1 electoral vote from the 2nd district. We'll mark Maine as leaning blue overall, but that single electoral vote from the 2nd district is likely going to Trump. Florida, once the crown jewel of battleground states, is now leaning solidly red. The latest polls show Trump with a 5-point lead, and if history is any indication, he'll likely win by an even larger margin. Florida polling has consistently underestimated Trump's support in both 2016 and 2020, and now that the GOP has a stronger hold on the state, Trump could win Florida by as much as 10 points. With these numbers, Florida is no longer the toss-up it once was. We'll mark it as lean red. At 8:30 p.m., Arkansas will close its polls, and it's no surprise that Trump will easily carry this solidly red state. By 9:00 p.m., another wave of 15 states will close their polls, representing 163 electoral votes. In this group, Trump will sweep the conservative states of Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, and most of Nebraska, except for its 2nd congressional district. He'll also win Kansas and Louisiana comfortably. Arizona, one of the biggest battlegrounds in the Southwest, is showing strong signs of flipping back to Trump. The latest Insider Advantage poll shows Trump leading Harris by 1, while Emerson College's poll from last week has Trump up by 3. Trump lost Arizona by a narrow margin in 2020, but he's been leading in 8 out of the last 11 polls conducted in the state. We'll mark Arizona as leaning red based on these trends. Meanwhile, Colorado and New Mexico, both blue-leaning states, are showing weaker support for Harris than they did for Biden in 2020. Harris leads by 11 points in Colorado and 6 points in New Mexico, but these margins are slimmer than what Biden saw in 2020. However, for now, we'll keep both states in the blue column. Texas, a massive electoral prize, is also leaning red. Trump leads by 5 in the latest polls. But as we've seen in past elections, Trump tends to outperform his polling in Texas. The state has been trending Republican for several cycles now, and we expect Trump to carry Texas comfortably. Based on the current polling, we'll mark it as leaning red. In the Midwest, Wisconsin and Michigan are both tilting red. Wisconsin has been a key battleground in recent years, but Trump's support has been holding steady. The latest Marquette University poll gives Trump a 4-point lead over Harris. And if this trend continues, Wisconsin is likely to flip back to the GOP.